Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Selamat pagi. Salam bahagia. Salam madani. Terima kasih kepada semua para hadirin kerana menghadiri majlis ini. Saya mula-mula dengan ucapan kepada yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Siti Nur Linda Taib, Timbalan Nak Chancellor bagi Research dan Innovation, yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Jayum Anak Jawan, kita punya Chair of ASM Chapter Sarawak Chapter, yang berkuasa Tuan Hazami Habib, CEO ASM, moderator dan ahli panelis bagi discussion pagi ini, members of the ASM chapter, deans and faculty members of UNIMAS, students and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say from the outset that we are very happy to be here, simply because Sarawak is a very important state to the nation. And of course, UNIMAS has a special meaning for me. It's like a homecoming, because I was here many years ago as a recipient of your honorary doctorate. So I'm one of you. That was the first convocation of UNIMAS, and my good friend Professor Zawawi was the Vice Chancellor at that time. And of course I want to recognize also Professor Pauline Bala, who at that time was a very young lady. She's still young, but at that time very young. Now very accomplished, of course. And we met, I want to say, because we were installing the first internet satellite connection in Barrio. At that time, very new. Internet was very new, and of course, having a satellite connection was very, very new. It was very symbolic for us because we wanted to show that even remote areas in Sarawak should not be neglected. So I'm giving the same message today. We are here to show again our support for all of you so that we can become better scientists together. Inshallah. I will have to speak a bit longer than I intended because I have to cover so many things. First of all, what is this roadshow all about? The roadshow started last couple of months ago in Sabah, where we covered similar things like here, but of course Sabah is different from Sarawak with different priorities. We covered a few things, and one of the things we thought was useful was to engage with teachers on how to teach STEM better to the rural schools especially. And I had an engagement personally with about 50-odd teachers. They were very appreciative of our contributions. And we would like to see that continue. But for Sarawak, it's slightly different again. Of course, there is similarity. After my talk, we will show you something that worked in Sabah. It's called the Tagal system. It is based on indigenous knowledge. And we hope to discover the same thing here in Sarawak for reasons I will mention later. But just to start off the discussion, my title of this talk, I give a title to it, is Holistic Knowledge in Addressing Planetary Health, the Role of Traditional and Indigenous Knowledge. Now, why is this important? It is important to recognize that different kinds of knowledge. In one talk recently, I used the word knowledges in the plural. And I hope people don't get upset because I destroyed the English language. I wanted to show that scientific knowledge as understood today is not the only kind of knowledge. And I have to say that as a scientist myself, the scientists have become a bit detached, isolated, and in a way rather arrogant in their approach to knowledge. But let's start with the objectives of the roadshow. The roadshow will cover the whole of Malaysia. Next month, inshallah, we'll go to East Coast, Terengganu and Kelantan. And we hope to also cover the other parts of Malaysia, the north and the south. By doing this, we hope to be able to engage with people on the ground with their particular activities and their particular concerns and challenges and priorities, so that we get a better understanding of what the ASM could do for the nation. So this sort of activity is actually quite expensive in terms of time. I just mentioned to Professor Jayum that it's very expensive, not just in terms of money, it's expensive in terms of time. But I think time and money well spent. Because by hearing things from the ground, we get to do what is called think globally, but act locally. To act locally, you need to understand the local context. So this is what the roadshow is all about. Now about the idea exchange. As you can see, this is the 38th one done so far. It began in 2011. From the beginning, I was quite impressed with what was discussed in these idea exchanges, because many of the ideas that we covered were actually quite new and quite creative, and which led to further work that we did. So we discovered new ideas just by listening to what people are saying. So we hope to do the same today. By listening to you, perhaps we can get some better ideas of how to deal with planetary health in a better way. So what are we going to talk about today? Let me share with you my initial thoughts. The PM has been using a term called post-normal times. Post-normal times is actually quite an old idea. It's not new. But to some of us here may be quite new because we never heard about it. But the PM used it in a speech about a couple of months ago, which I quite was surprised, because he started the speech by saying that I'm not going to use my text, I'm going to speak off the cuff. And then he started saying post-normal times and connected it to the idea of the future of science. So I told my colleagues that you cannot afford to miss this, because you cannot appear less smart than the Prime Minister. At least before the Prime Minister, you have to appear equally smart. Okay, what is then post-normal times? Basically, we are going through tremendous change, a very rapid transformation with many different drivers of change, some of which are technical, but many are not. If you look at the COVID-19 crisis, you can see what this change is all about. It is actually accelerating change, and the root cause of the COVID crisis was the encroachment on the habitat of the fauna and flora. And then we had to respond to it in a way that had many uncertainties, many systems were not in place, and we lacked complete information, complete knowledge. So if you looked at it, the response to the COVID-19 crisis is a scientific process, scientific endeavor, you begin to realize that it wasn't scientific at all. It was based on very holistic governance frameworks, very rapid decision-making, based on incomplete knowledge and best at the time decision-making. It is very iterative, very dynamic, and changing all the time. So this is not the normal way that we manage ourselves, isn't it? So what post-normal times is telling us is that the future will become less and less certain. So what are the three simple descriptions of post-normal times? The PM used these three words. I will use also the same three words. It is based on complexity, chaos, contradictions. You can see immediately normal science cannot exist. You cannot make decisions based on normal science because the system is too complex. The system is chaotic and the system is full of contradictions. Okay. So if you follow normal science, you cannot address the challenge of COVID-19. And future epidemics, future changes in human society cannot be addressed because you are too complacent with your view of knowledge. Let me say what is that view that is normal science. Normal science is rationalist. It sees the world in a reduced mode. It's reductionist. It is based on materialism, empiricism, and determinism, all of which are very specific to very narrow part of nature. So nature is not a linear system. Nature is a very non-linear system with many kinds of feedback, positive feedback and negative feedback at the same time. Nature does not have a stable point. Nature has many equilibrium points, any of which can be displaced and take us to another kind of equilibrium. The risk to human life is that when nature is displaced from one equilibrium point to another, the new equilibrium point may not be favorable to human life. That is the concern of planetary health. So among the younger generation here, I hope you appreciate what we are saying. What you're studying in the classroom now may not be enough. We have to widen our thinking, our scope of reading and experience in such a way that we can handle complexity, chaos, and contradictions. It's not in your textbook, by the way. So, how do we actually get ahead with this? So by following normal science, the way I described earlier, which is rationalist, we have actually created an unbalanced nature. That unbalanced system has produced climate change. And the whole world is grappling with the challenge of how to address climate change. With no clear solution. There's no solution, especially political solutions. So life has become less and less sustainable, and some of the island states that we know in the Pacific Ocean will not exist anymore, because when sea levels rise, they will be submerged. So as we say, little islands with big problems. So what does scientists have to do? Scientists will have to be less arrogant. We have to be more humble to say that we do not have all the answers. Answers must come from different kinds of discipline. And one kind of answer can come from traditional and indigenous knowledge. That's why this discussion to follow is very, very important. Now, what does ASM need to do? Obviously, we are in the business of science. But in our notion of science, we combine both natural sciences as well as human sciences. We have had people like Professor Jayum for several years now. We have many sociologists, economists, historians even, lawyers, legal people, etc., as our members. At the beginning, there was a bit of resistance. There still exists resistance, but many of us, certainly I, support the integration of knowledge. So I believe that comprehensive, holistic, integrated knowledge is essential if we want to address the major challenges of humanity. So what was before was we produced technocentric solutions only. In the future, technocentric solutions will not do. We have to be more human-centered and more so humanity-centered. I hope you understand the terms, because I won't have time to explain all these things. But if you want to know more, all of us should do more reading. So let's move on. So what is ASM here to do? We need to rebalance knowledge, and we need to create new knowledge systems with its own structures, with its own processes that are not limited by normal science. If you apply the rules of normal science to indigenous knowledge, indigenous knowledge will not qualify, basically. It will not follow the same empirical formulas, nor will be able to create laws in the traditional scientific sense. So what are we really saying here? We are saying that together we have a common challenge to address. Together we can rebuild this knowledge, and perhaps we will rebuild it one that suits the whole of humanity. Why should Malaysia come up with new ideas that other people do not have? And I'm confident even today, when we speak about these things, other people are listening, as opposed to just a few years ago. People think that you are primitive people, you are aborigines, you know nothing about science. Well, that's another kind of nonsense. So this is where I think we can bring sensibility, we can bring consciousness and awareness to people who have never experienced this before, to say that actually in your own cultures you had this, but you threw it away in favor of a mechanical universe. And that mechanical universe actually does not really exist. It was a figment of your own imagination. So you better get smarter and throw out that imagined mechanical system and replace it one that is more integrated between what is so-called mechanical and what is more human and of course biological in nature. So I wanted to say just that to make sure that we are on the same page as far as the agenda is concerned. ASM would like to help the country, all of us together, to develop this kind of integrated knowledge so that we can actually have a better future that is able to address the challenges of planetary health in a more conscious and, of course, effective way. By the way, ASM is developing the roadmap for planetary health for the country, arising from another paper we presented last year, 1 year ago, on planetary health, which was presented to the Science Council at that time and was very well received. It is, as I said, very holistic and very integrated. The roadmap, inshallah, will also show the same features. So I hope you'll all be able to support us in this endeavor. Thank you very much.